There are moments in sports that don't need words to make noise. Moments where silence cuts deeper than any quote, where a single gesture can ignite headlines, and one quiet decision can flip the entire narrative upside down. That's exactly what happened when Shedeur Sanders, the Cleveland Browns' young, polarizing quarterback, stood in front of a room full of reporters and said nothing. No sound, no statement, just hand gestures, a half smile, and silence. And somehow, that silence echoed across the entire NFL. The clip went viral almost instantly. It was everywhere: Twitter, Instagram, ESPN, YouTube, every outlet replaying the same 20 seconds on loop. Reporters looked confused. Fans were divided. Some said it was hilarious. Others said it was disrespectful. But one man, Rex Ryan, took it personally. He didn't just react, he detonated.
Tired of boring phone cases? Here's your chance. My Etsy shop is packed with exclusive designs that let you show off your team pride in style. And the best part? You'll unlock discounts when you hit favorite, more savings when you add to cart, and even surprise discounts on your second purchase. Don't wait. Click the link in the description and grab your favorite now.
Rex, the former NFL head coach turned TV analyst, absolutely unloaded on Shedeur during a live broadcast. His tone wasn't analytical. It wasn't professional critique. It was pure frustration, maybe even a bit of ego. He called out Shedeur's maturity, mocked his attitude, and tore into him like he'd just witnessed the downfall of the league's professionalism. It was the kind of rant that made even seasoned insiders shift uncomfortably in their seats. You could almost feel the tension through the screen, the kind that only happens when someone forgets that these players are still young men learning in real time under a microscope. But what Rex didn't expect was what came next. Because this time, Shedeur didn't clap back with words. He didn't tweet. He didn't post some cryptic story. He responded with silence, and that silence became the story. And that's where the narrative began to twist, because not everyone agreed with Rex Ryan's interpretation of what happened. That's when Mary Kay Cabot, one of the most respected and veteran reporters covering the Cleveland Browns, stepped into the conversation. And instead of piling on, she did something that completely shifted the conversation. She defended Shedeur, not with emotion but with context. She didn't excuse his behavior, she explained it. And in doing so, she made Rex Ryan look like he had completely missed the bigger picture. Mary Kay's take was simple but powerful. She said that what Shedeur did wasn't random. It wasn't immature. It wasn't arrogance. It was calculated, a deliberate choice to say nothing in a world that demands players say everything. According to her, Shedeur Sanders knows exactly who he is and what comes with that name. He knows that being Shedeur Sanders, the son of Deion Sanders, means that every move he makes, every sentence he speaks becomes a headline, a debate, a segment on someone's talk show. He doesn't need to say much for people to talk. He is the conversation. And here's the thing that most people missed. Mary Kay wasn't guessing. She had proof. She revealed a moment from Brown's training camp that shows just how self-aware Shedeur really is. One afternoon, while another player, Jerome Ford, was addressing the media at the podium, Shedeur walked out of the facility, heading toward his own scheduled interview. As soon as he saw the cameras starting to shift toward him, he froze. Then, under his breath, he told the team's PR staff, "I'm not going to talk until Jerome's done." He didn't want to steal the spotlight. He didn't want to take attention away from his teammate. He knew that if he stepped into that frame, the reporters would instantly turn, and the story would no longer be about Ford, it would be about Sanders. Mary Kay said she overheard it and thought it was a cool example of how aware he is of his own influence. That moment stayed with her, because it said everything about who Shedeur is behind the cameras. He isn't some entitled rookie looking for attention. He's a young man trying to manage it. He's someone who understands that his name is both a blessing and a burden. He knows his words can light up the internet, and sometimes the smartest move is to keep them locked away. Now fast forward to that viral press conference. The Browns had just named Dillon Gabriel as the starting quarterback. Shedeur, now sitting as the backup, was in the middle of a storm of opinions, people wondering if he was frustrated, impatient, or even bitter. But when he faced the media, he didn't lash out. He didn't sulk. He didn't speak. He just mimed his responses, acknowledging the reporters, but saying nothing. And according to Mary Kay, there's a reason for that too. She believes Shedeur didn't want to overshadow Gabriel's moment. He knew that if he spoke, every headline would be about him, not about the new starter. He'd been through this before. Back in college, and even in early NFL training camp, he saw firsthand how easily he could steal a spotlight without even trying. So instead, he chose silence as a way to not dominate the story. He tried to let someone else have their day. Of course, irony had other plans. His silence became louder than any statement he could have made. The memes exploded, the debate shows went wild, and Rex Ryan doubled down, claiming Shedeur's behavior was proof of immaturity. But Mary Kay wasn't having it. She went live and said something that made the entire conversation shift in real time. When Shedeur does anything, it's always critiqued. What I don't like is that you can't control and make it what you want it to be, because it's not that. Rex Ryan's remarks are things he's spewing without actually having facts to back them up. And if you do have facts, Rex, you need to come forth with the source. That right there, that was a line that hit like a thunderclap. A veteran journalist standing up for a young player who everyone else was quick to label. And she was right, because Rex didn't know the full picture. He didn't know that Shedeur's silence wasn't born out of arrogance, it was born out of awareness. It was a young man saying, "I know how you twist my words. So this time, I'll give you nothing to twist." That's not immaturity. That's intelligence. That's control. And it takes an incredible amount of restraint to do that, especially when millions of people are waiting for you to snap back. But here's where this story becomes even bigger than Rex or Shedeur. This entire moment exposes something deeper about how we treat young players in the NFL, especially those who come from famous families with expectations stacked against them from the moment they walk in the door. We love to build them up as prodigies, as saviors, as content. And then the second they act outside of our script, we tear them down. We call it accountability, but often it's just entertainment. Shedeur Sanders isn't perfect. No one is. But what we're seeing isn't immaturity, it's evolution. It's a young man navigating fame, pressure, and criticism with a level of awareness most veterans still struggle to master. He understands that sometimes the smartest play isn't a touchdown, it's a timeout. And that day at the podium, Shedeur called the perfect one. Because while Rex Ryan was shouting for attention, Shedeur Sanders was mastering it. While the media was dissecting his silence, he was controlling the entire conversation without saying a single word. And in a league where image and perception can make or break careers, that kind of composure isn't just impressive, it's powerful. Maybe that's what Deion Sanders taught him. Not just how to play the game, but how to command the room. When to speak, and when silence can speak louder. When to own the spotlight, and when to step back and let it burn on its own. And if you ask me, that's not arrogance. That's strategy. That's a quarterback thinking 5 steps ahead, on and off the field. So, when you look back at that viral clip, that quiet, strange, confusing press conference, maybe it wasn't a tantrum. Maybe it was a masterclass. Because in a world obsessed with noise, Shedeur Sanders proved something that even Rex Ryan couldn't argue with. Sometimes, silence is the loudest sound in the room. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. Shedeur Sanders is the third-string quarterback. Third string. For a guy who was once a Heisman candidate, who carried Colorado to some of their biggest wins in years, who was projected by many to be a first or second round draft pick, that reality has to sting. And it's not just any kind of setback. It's the kind that cuts into your pride, your confidence, and even your sense of identity. As Mary Kay Cabot pointed out, this is the first time in Shedeur's entire life and career that he's had to sit behind other quarterbacks. And that kind of adjustment isn't just difficult, it's a psychological battle. Imagine it. You've been the guy your entire life. You're the high school star who everyone expects to go pro. You're the college starter from day one. Your father, Deion Sanders, literally builds an entire program around you. You're on magazine covers, in national commercials, representing a brand that's bigger than football. You're seen as the future. And then, in what feels like the blink of an eye, you go from being the centerpiece to being a spectator. Suddenly, you're not just a backup, you're QB3. You're holding a clipboard. Your running scout team plays in practice while someone else takes the reps that you believe you've earned. Every part of you wants to be out there, proving yourself, leading, competing. But instead, you're told to wait, to watch, to learn. Mary Kay said something that stuck with me. It cannot be easy for him to believe that he can go out there and start football games and have to be the third-string quarterback right now. And she's right. This is a mental grind unlike anything Shedeur has ever faced. Every day he's trying to stay ready, stay sharp, stay confident, all while fighting that quiet voice that whispers, "You should be playing." But here's the part that deserves respect. Shedeur Sanders is working. Mary Kay made it clear, this isn't a player who's checked out. He's not sulking in the corner. He's not pointing fingers or causing locker room issues. He's putting in the effort. He's studying, learning the system, doing everything expected of him as a professional. He's trying to get better every day, even when the cameras aren't rolling. And that's what makes what happened next even tougher to watch. When Rex Ryan went on national television and absolutely tore into Shedeur Sanders, it wasn't about football. It wasn't about reads or mechanics or decision-making. It was personal. It was about his personality, his swagger, his confidence, the same things that made him a star in college and a fan favorite. And that's when the situation crossed a line. Because when a young player is already struggling to find his footing in the NFL and an experienced analyst uses his platform to take cheap shots, it's no longer analysis. It's targeted criticism. And here's where Shedeur did something that not many people his age would have the discipline to do. He stayed silent. No angry posts, no quotes, no reaction. Just silence. Controlled. Calculated. Maybe even a little bit petty. But also incredibly smart. It was his way of saying, I'm not giving you more ammunition. Mary Kay said something that everyone needs to understand. These are very young men. They come into the NFL with different backgrounds, different levels of maturity, different experiences with media and fame. Some have been polished since high school. Others are still learning how to navigate it all. And Shedeur? He's learning. He's figuring it out in real time. Shedeur didn't mean any harm with what happened at that press conference. Mary Kay said, he's got a lot of personality. He's done a lot of things right. He's trying to navigate a situation that nobody prepared him for. She even added, I'm a Shedeur fan and I hope he gets a fair chance somewhere to maximize his skills. Think about that. A respected NFL insider, one of the most credible voices covering the Browns, saying she's rooting for him. That's not something you hear often. But she also offered one fair criticism, and it's worth acknowledging. The miming incident, that silent gesture at the press conference, unintentionally overshadowed what was supposed to be Dillon Gabriel's day. That was her only disappointment. Not that Shedeur responded to Rex Ryan, not that he was frustrated, but that the execution of his response took attention away from his teammate. And honestly, that's fair. Mary Kay said something deeply insightful. I don't know that he made the connection. This may just be a product of being not yet 25, where your brain isn't fully formed and you don't always understand how your actions can ripple into consequences. That's real. That's honest. Shedeur probably thought staying silent, literally not saying a word, was the mature move. He wanted to avoid drama. What he didn't realize was that the act of silence itself would create a bigger spectacle. And she's right. Most people didn't even know the full story. They didn't see the Rex Ryan comments that started this whole mess. They didn't understand the pressure that Shedeur was under. They just saw a clip of him acting weird and assumed the worst. But context changes everything. Mary Kay even offered another explanation, one that actually makes Shedeur look thoughtful. She said, I'm guessing that Shedeur Sanders didn't want the words to come out of his mouth because he didn't want to overshadow Dillon Gabriel's moment. He knew if he spoke, the spotlight would shift to him. So instead, he stayed quiet. He acknowledged the media without saying anything that could hijack the narrative. Did it backfire? Absolutely. But the intention behind it was good. So here's the real question. Was Shedeur Sanders being immature? Or was he being self-aware? Was that a mistake? Or a young man trying to navigate an impossible situation under a microscope that never blinks? And more importantly, why is Rex Ryan, a man in his 60s who's been around this game for decades, going after a third-string quarterback who hasn't even taken a single NFL snap? How does that make sense? Where's the accountability for that? Mary Kay laid it out perfectly. She said, it would have been so easy for Shedeur to walk into that press conference and say, I'm happy for Dillon, I'm here to support him, I'm continuing to learn, and I'll be ready when my number is called. That's it. 5 sentences. Clean. Professional. Mature. And she's right. That would have been the safer route. But here's the bigger point. Why do we hold a 23-year-old player to a higher standard than we hold a former NFL head coach turned analyst? Rex Ryan knows how media works. He knows how headlines are created. He knows his words carry weight. And yet, he chose to take a personal shot at a kid who's still trying to find his footing in the league. That's not leadership. That's not mentorship. That's ego. Here's the truth about Shedeur Sanders. He's unapologetically himself. He's got charisma, swagger, confidence, and presence. In an era where most players are trained to give robotic, cliché answers, Shedeur is real. He's authentic. He's box office. He's must-watch TV. But being that magnetic comes with a cost. Every move gets dissected. Every reaction gets analyzed. Every mistake gets magnified. And what we're seeing right now is Shedeur learning, in real time, how to balance authenticity with professionalism, how to be himself without letting it become a distraction. He's walking that thin line between confidence and composure, between defending himself and letting things slide, between emotion and restraint. Mary Kay shared a training camp story that really says it all. Shedeur was about to step up to the podium when another player, Jerome Ford, was already speaking. And Shedeur stopped himself. He literally said, "I'm not going to talk until Jerome is done." That right there, that's growth. That's maturity. That's a young man understanding how his presence changes the energy in a room and showing respect to a teammate. He doesn't always get it right. The miming thing wasn't the best look, sure. But the thought behind it, the awareness, the attempt to stay composed, that's what people are missing. Mary Kay said, "These guys are young, and it doesn't always play out the way they think it will." Shedeur thought silence would keep the spotlight on Dylan Gabriel. He miscalculated. But the fact that he even thought about that shows self-awareness most rookies don't have. And that's what makes this story so compelling. Shedeur Sanders isn't some no-name practice squad player hoping for a break. He's a former Heisman contender. He's Deion Sanders' son. He's got millions of followers, endorsement deals, fame, and expectations that most rookies can't even imagine. And yet, right now, he's QB3. That's the story, the tension between who he was and where he is. The world expects him to dominate, but the NFL demands patience. He's living in that uncomfortable space between hype and humility. And that's what I respect about him. Because even when things don't go perfectly, he doesn't quit. He doesn't lash out. He learns. He adjusts. He grows. So yeah, the miming thing? Not ideal. But you know what? It sparked a real conversation about how young players are treated, about how analysts use their platforms, and about how quick people are to judge before they understand. Mary Kay said she's a Shedeur Sanders fan. She hopes he gets a fair chance. And I'll be honest, so do I. Not because of his name, not because of his father, but because of his resilience. Because I've seen how he's handling this. With patience, awareness, and grace that most people aren't giving him credit for. Rex Ryan can talk all he wants. The critics can keep chirping. But here's the truth. Shedeur Sanders isn't going anywhere. He's too talented, too driven, too focused. And when that moment finally comes, when his number gets called, whether it's in Cleveland or somewhere else, he'll be ready. The only question is when he finally steps on that field and proves everyone wrong. Will the people who doubted him be ready to admit it? Because this story isn't over. Not even close. Shedeur Sanders' journey is just beginning. And whether you love him or doubt him, you can't ignore him. He's one of the most fascinating players in football right now, not just for what he does on the field, but for how he handles everything off it. So, tell me what you think. Was Shedeur being immature, or was he being strategic? Did Rex cross a line, or was this just part of the game? Drop your thoughts below, and if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and stay tuned. Because here we break down every story, every controversy, and every comeback, one player at a time.